I am chatting with Holly Fey from Burges Salmon today, and we're talking about their DE&I strategy and specifically the entry for the IHR Awards, where they were a finalist. So Holly, hello, and thank you for chatting with me.
No, thank you.
How long have you been with Burges Salmon then?
So I'm quite a long server. I've been with the firm coming up 14 years.
Okay, right. So you know where all the bodies are buried, and I dare say you've seen a huge amount of change in recruitment in that time, and perhaps the importance of DE&I.
Yes.
There's a lot of really interesting content on your website, which I'd encourage people to go and have a look at. But give us an idea of what's the strategy, what's the approach, and why is DE&I important for Burges Salmon?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting observation in terms of how DE&I has come to the forefront, actually, because when I joined the firm, it was something we were looking at, but it was more kind of done by what we called the CSR team at that point, but is now responsible business. And actually what's evolved over the years is we have sort of come together on a lot of the pieces. You know, it's more of a kind of joint effort rather than it just being a CSR activity. We are also in the legal sector. The legal sector was sort of slow to adopt, you know, the DE&I. So embrace it, really embrace. We are sort of still sort of fairly well known for being quite traditional, not us as a firm, but the legal sector in general is still, you know, and there's still quite a lot of headlines that come out saying, you know, we're still not overly represented in a lot of different areas. There's still a lot of privately educated people that come into the legal sector. We're not hugely well represented by women in senior positions, and there is a real challenge with ethnic minorities. So it's something that's become more and more important to us. And the reason it's become more and more important in resourcing is obviously we don't want to miss out on talent that don't see themselves in a firm like ours. When in fact, if you sort of look under the bonnet, as it were, we're a very welcoming, really kind of inclusive organisation that we're really hard to make sure that people do feel like they can be who they are at the firm.
Okay, interesting. And so where did the journey start? Was you know, you can't solve all of these problems overnight, right? So how did you go about prioritizing?
Yeah, so that actually came from a sort of collaboration with our responsible business team, who actually, you know, fundamentally got to the data and said, right, where are our issues? You know, what do we actually need to tackle? Because like you say, you get hundreds of approaches a day on an organisation that can fix all your D&I issues. But actually, it's not possible. So we very much focus on where are we underrepresented? You know, where do we actually need to put you know, to funnel the capacity of the team, the money, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So we pinpointed that we are still underrepresented when it comes to ethnic minorities, and you know, and sort of mirroring the sector as well. We're underrepresented at a female senior level, which is partnership in our case.
Okay. And so what's the strategy been then? You know, you've identified the sort of the issues and you know what you want to solve. How have you gone about doing it?
So we have sort of two key work streams, I think, and in terms of the entry that we put in for IHR, that was actually focused on the senior hiring. And what we recognised when we were looking at the data is, when we receive applications from partners, it's normally via an agency, you know, that's or a headhunter. And it was an overwhelming majority of those approaches were male. And so actually we can't affect the sort of senior female representation if we are only bringing men laterally into the partnership. So what we decided to do was actually every time we got an approach that we thought looked interesting, we said, right, we are going to map the market here, and we are going to make sure that we don't just automatically jump on the CV that's come to us. We are going to look at the market and say, right, who else is out there? And that is on the basis that what we were finding is when we were sort of down a track with an application, there were definitely women who were, hitting the brief that we wanted, but weren't putting themselves forward. And it's also widely acknowledged, as you know, that there's lots of evidence to say that women don't apply for jobs unless they hit 100% of the
absolutely
of the job description, whereas men not so much. They're more
6 out of 10 that'll do.
Exactly, and that's part of the battle. So that was a big focus for us. It was about, how are we going to make sure that we're not missing that female talent who we need to be bringing in on a lateral basis. That also supports the internal pipeline that we manage as well. And then the second part of that is, how do we role model that you can be a partner in a law firm and be a mum? That seems to be one of the big things that people are concerned about is when you're looking at your career as you sort of get more and more senior, how do you balance the fact that your client demands are massive, your team demands are massive, you've got chargeable targets? How do you balance that with the fact that you've got to go to your kids' assembly, nativity, school fair? As you can tell, all three of those are on my list today, actually. So it was, and that was all about role modeling and getting people to sort of tell their stories to say it's possible, and actually what the wonderful thing that we've seen recently is that the legal press is getting hold of this, and they're starting to talk about spotlights on women who are making it work, being open about the challenges, but making it work as well.
And I guess you must have some reasonable buy-in from senior leadership to make this sort of initiative work. How have you gone about agreeing the objectives, agreeing the communication plan, and rolling that out across the organisation?
I mean, I think we are very, very fortunate that our managing partner is well and truly behind this initiative, to the point that I was hidden in the back of a presentation he was doing recently at a Women in Business event, and he talked about this initiative, and I was absolutely delighted he was talking about this being a really proud piece for him. We also have effectively a sort of steering group that look at lateral hires. So I keep referring to lateral hires as partners and directors. And they were behind it. And they are a big sort of group of stakeholders, most of which are on the board. So to have that, to have that behind us. We also got support from our D&I committee. So we do have a D&I committee at the firm who got behind it. And I think when you start talking about female representation in particular in the legal sector at more senior levels, there is an appetite for it. 60% of the people that come into our firm as legal professionals are women, and then that sort of trickles out. So you've already got that buy-in from the business, from the stakeholders, and then the comms plan was rolled out in partnership with the responsible business team. So and then we got our the agents and the headhunters. We had to get their buy-in as well and say, you've got to be looking at us more broadly. You can't just be sending us all male candidates anymore. That's not what we're after.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you're making really good strides there. What are the results you've had? What are the green shoots where you're seeing positivity and good outcomes?
It's been a good year. I mean, I think the difficulty with us is we're not talking huge numbers of partner hires full stop in our business. It's partners and directors, I think it's hanging around 10 this year, and it's a 50-50 split, which is great actually. Fantastic. Because when you look at when we opened Edinburgh, and it was a mass partner hiring, and there was only 4, but they were all men. So we have moved that dial already, and I think the more that, because I also find with D&I, and I talk to my my sort of counterpart, the head of in the responsible business team. It's challenging in D&I because you put an initiative in and you won't see the results for 3, 4, 5 years, because a lot of it is a cultural change. But we are starting to see it, and we were delighted to see the legal press covering this kind of thing as well, which is just going to keep backing us up. Excellent.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge that you've still got to tackle, or perhaps the one that you're sort of struggling to make a difference on?
I think it's those. I think it will continue to be those two. I think it will continue to be female leadership, female partnership. I think that will continue to be a challenge, and it will continue to be a challenge because the legal sector is very demanding, and it is hard, isn't it, to do a drop off and be present in a meeting within 10 minutes after your kid's been screaming the house down. Those are the sort of challenges. Chatting about that though is it's also acknowledging men being parents and men and the challenges that men and that sort of shared responsibility which we're seeing more of, and we do still continue to have challenges in areas such as ethnic minorities, but also social mobility as well continues to be quite a big piece in the legal sector, so that there are initiatives around that sort of coming out. And a lot of that is focused more around the emerging talent. So reaching into communities that don't see themselves working at a firm like Burges Salmon, and inviting them in and saying, come and have a look. Don't. We are all human. We're a big scary office in the middle of Bristol, but we're human beings. It is very nice. We'll buy you a coffee and we'll just get to know you over over a chat. So it's sort of widening access to the profession. And massive things, more macro things like apprenticeships becoming more available. We were one of the trailblazers in that as well. So we are already accessing people who can't go to university but want to become a lawyer. You no longer have to have a degree to qualify as a lawyer. You can do an apprenticeship and end up with a master's.
So it sounds like you're making change, right from the top, the very most senior roles, right to the entry level roles, and seeing progress all the way through. Really I think that's the biggest piece for me actually in the last couple of years, is acknowledging that we've always been trying to affect change at the more junior, the entry level, because that's about raising aspirations and widening access, and we've got a lot of support on that. But I think we need to acknowledge that there are challenges at every single level, legal, business, professional, whatever it might be, and we need to be making sure that everybody sees us as a viable option. Yeah, fantastic. Holly, it's been really interesting hearing about this, and delighted that you're finalists in the IHR Awards, and look forward to reading more of your successes in the future.
Oh, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Holly.